Sword Art Online Season 1 sucks. Here's why. So, I recently ran it back and watched Season 1 of Sword Art Online again. And oh man, what a disaster of a show. If you're here right now watching this video, you probably know what Sword Art Online is. But in case you don't, Sword Art Online, aka SAO, is an Isekai anime that revolves around our protagonist, Kirito, after he and thousands of others are trapped inside of a virtual reality MMORPG called, wait for it, Sword Art Online. Wow, inspirational, so cool. It's considered an OG of the modern Isekai genre as we know it, and it's even credited with pioneering the money printer that is the VR MMORPG genre. I know it became a big meme that if you die in the game, you die in real life, but for the time that SAO came out, it wasn't the same overused trope that it eventually turned into. And frankly, even now the concept of a full dive virtual reality game that traps its users in it with real life consequences as severe as death is pretty horrifying. So at this point you're probably thinking that this is a solid concept for a show. It couldn't be that bad, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Or rather, mostly wrong? Let me explain. The first half of Season 1 is fine. I have gripes with it that I'll get into in a little bit, but overall it's a pretty solid, albeit very generic story with some good action scenes. The main issue comes in with the second half of Season 1. It's hot garbage. Like, one of the worst turns the show could have feasibly taken bad. The story transitions from a unique, oh my god, how could this have happened situation, to a slightly different, worse version of the same thing, just recycled with an awful villain and rampant fetishization. It's actually insane how much they dropped the ball here. I mean, don't get me wrong, the first half of the series isn't anything to write home about, it's generic even for the time it was released, but it's not that bad. The first half feels like it's thought out, to some capacity, whereas the second half of the series feels like they just wanted a platform to show off their weird, messed up kinks. I'm all for having a despicable antagonist who has almost no redeemable qualities, but I draw the line when their whole personality is, ooh, I'm so bad, watch me do gross things. It just makes for a shallow character. I think the second main antagonist of SAO stands out as awful so much because of how good the first one was. Well, at least comparatively. Our first villain/antagonist is Akihiko Kayaba, who created not only Sword Art Online, the game within the show, but also the VR headset and game engine that everyone uses to play these games. He's a very grand and polarizing figure within this universe. His original goal was to create his own world because he was frustrated with reality and all of the rules, politics, and societal constraints that came along with it. And Kayaba knew that he wanted to die in his game from the start. Clearly, he went about pursuing this goal in the worst way possible, dragging everyone else into his delusional mess. But he has clearly defined standards while he's within the game. He generally doesn't interfere with what the players are doing, and when he loses to Kirito towards the midpoint of the series, he takes his defeat gracefully and actually releases everyone from the game as promised. This is in stark contrast to our second villain/antagonist, Sugo. From the get-go, this villain is tonally completely different from our first villain, where Kayaba was shrouded in this mystery for most of the show, laying low just beneath the players' noses in this world he's created. Sugo is there from the jump, just being a disgusting little rat. We first come across him in Asuna's hospital room. Asuna's the main love interest, by the way. I don't even know if I have to mention that, but I figured I would. After Kirito cleared Sword Art Online. Why are they in Asuna's hospital room, you may ask? Because Ratboy Sugo over here transferred her from SAO to another VR game called Alfheim Online, effectively kidnapping her, or kidnapping her consciousness? Listen, you get the gist. His purpose for doing this? Because he's into her. They know each other in the real world, and Asuna has expressed that she's very much not interested in him. So of course the natural progression of this is to kidnap her virtually and keep her trapped in a big bird cage. He also touches her in real life while she's catatonic and puts his fingers up in or on her mouth, which is just so vile. The main problem is that Kayaba had this grand plan. Even if it wasn't completely thought out and a lot of it was spur of the moment, big stuff was still going on. Whereas Sugo's just mad he got rejected, so he's constantly trying to force himself on Asuna. I mentioned rampant fetishization earlier, so let me elaborate on that a little bit. If you aren't comfortable hearing about things like this, then please skip ahead to the time on the screen. So let me make a little list. There's lollies, incest, tentacle guys, a ton of sexual assault scenes or implied sexual assault scenes, including on people who are unconscious, forced marriage, and constant threats of rape. I understand that these scenes are meant to make you uncomfortable and that you're not supposed to like Sugo, but if you're one of the people who for some reason defends this type of writing, be better. Using "it's supposed to make you uncomfortable" is such a weak excuse. You can create antagonists who are awful and do gross things without making it literally their only thing. When compared to our first villain, it just feels like a complete cop-out and only serves to make the show feel more shallow than it already did. Shallow is a great way to describe this show. Most of the characters have about as much personality as a wet paper towel. Even the protagonist Kirito doesn't really have much going on emotionally. He feels more like a self-insert than an actual properly written character. He started off fine, made some friends, and seemingly adapted to the world pretty fast. But then people find out that he beta tested the game. They start calling him a beta tester, in a derogatory manner I guess, and a cheater. Instead of taking the 5 minutes to explain to everyone how it would be beneficial in this life or death scenario to have information on the game world, bro just has a mental breakdown and starts calling himself, wait for it, a beater. You know, like beta tester and cheater combined? Clever, right? The fact that he caved immediately and didn't even try to explain himself is just beyond me. I can already hear people saying now, but he's supposed to be a lone wolf. He could have done the whole lone wolf shtick without everyone hating him. Like, that was definitely not a requirement for him to be alone. But he needed to unite the players and give them a common goal. As if clearing the death game isn't a common goal that everyone has to work towards already. This logic just does not track with me. I'm sorry. The more you watch Sword Art Online, the more you recognize the glaring inconsistencies. You realize that not everything happens for a reason in this show. Sometimes things just occur to further what's happening in the moment. A good example of this is at one point Kirito can suddenly hack an in-game console at like light speed. Since when did he have these skills? Is it because they established that he was on his computer a lot? I thought that just meant dude was refreshing his Twitter timeline every 15 minutes, not that he would be some elite hacker. If he had the skills and abilities to hack an in-game console to the extent that he does in the show, why would he have not done it earlier? Would that have not benefited everyone immensely? And even if he didn't have access to an in-game console, why would he not be seeking one out? It just doesn't add up. There's no denying that many plot points were pulled out of thin air. I just wish that if they were so dead set on using a Deus Ex Machina like this, that they would at least make it less egregious. In the end, SAO just feels so incredibly botched. If they cut the show off at the halfway point where Kirito is walking away from his headset that served as a prison for years, the show would have been top tier, or at least way better than it was. It would have been an amazing ending to a show that wasn't all that bad and had some real highlights in it up to that point. But they didn't. Instead, there's that moment where the show continues, which makes it abundantly clear that they stopped caring. Shallow writing combined with a steady decline in quality as the story progresses makes SAO Season 1 a thoroughly unenjoyable experience. Crossing Field! Y'all know I love Crossing Field, baby! 10 out of 10, nothing less, for the best! Hi! I just want to say thank you if you made it this far in the video. I really appreciate it. I know this video might be a bit controversial, and I'm interested in what you guys have to say. Make sure you comment down below what you think of Season 1 of Sword Art Online. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Thanks again, and have a great day.